Mike Banner here, host of the 62 Who Knew television show. Tonight's going to be a great show as we're joined by Carroll Golden from NAIFA. You're going to learn a bunch of incredible things, a project that NAIFA has been working on, and it's going to be a great show, so stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome, and I always ask, what show is this? What is it, show number 54? 55, double nickels, 55th show. It's a very special show. First, I want to thank with all my heart my guest last week, because it was me. That's right. We had a show on reverse mortgages. It was a very informative guest. It's almost like I knew what he was thinking. It was amazing. But we did have a lot of good reaction to the show last week. I try not to bring up reverse mortgages, although we're going to be talking to them a little bit about them, just a little tonight. But again, our main focus tonight is long-term care insurance, something that I am very, very sensitive to, and that the nation should be very sensitive to. So since I don't have to go too much into thanking last week's guest, let me just, for our new viewers, once again, last week, we were between 80 and 90,000 viewers. We're very happy with that. But just for the new people joining us, what is 62 Who Knew? 62 Who Knew is a program about the double-edged sword of longer lifespans. And what I say at the beginning of every show, and it's the truth, my father, your father, everybody's father, grandfather, father before them, as they approached the age of 62, they all asked the same questions. Should I take Social Security now? Should I defer it till later? Have I saved enough money? Should I try and pay off my house, or do I want a mortgage payment during retirement? Do I need long-term care insurance? What age do I get Medicare supplemental policies? Everybody has those questions. Should I get life insurance? If I have life insurance, do I still need it? The questions never stop. And every generation has those questions as they approach retirement, and the age of 62 is kind of synonymous with retirement. And when I say every generation has had the same problems, with the exception of my generation, at 61 years old, my generation has one more different hurdle than our fathers, grandfathers, and their fathers before them. What is that hurdle? Longer lifespans. Thanks to science, medical technology, breakthroughs, the odds are very good in this country that if you make it to your low 60s, you're going to make it to 90. And the truth of the matter is, less than 1% of this country has the mathematic or financial ability to make it 25 or 30 years once they hit retirement. So 62 Who Knew is all about that double-edged sword, that mixed blessings. We bring on experts every week to talk about all those topics that affect people as they're planning for retirement, or even ones that are already in retirement. And today's show is no exception. We're bringing back for the second time not only one of my favorite guests, but one of my favorite people, Miss Carroll Golden, who has been known for X amount of years. How many years?
I never ask a woman that question. You're not going to get an
more
answer.
Than 3. More than 5, okay? For a lot of years, nationally and internationally, in the long-term care insurance world. And she came in about a year ago, wasn't it? Almost a year.
Just about a year ago.
To talk about a project that you're heading for NAIFA.
Right.
It was my favorite organization. They really are. They do so much for the public. we've brought her back not just to talk about what has happened in the last year, but changes in long-term care insurance,
Right.
changes in many things. NAIFA had some huge changes in this
It
last
did.
year
It
that
did.
was kind of a historical. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Carol. We're going to make this her show for the night. And thank you for being here, as always, and taking the long drive.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for having me. I think at this point, we both know that many of the consumers, many of the advisors, many of us right in the industry are watching the industry metamorphose. Good industries, good issues are always going to change, and they're going to become more adept at serving the customer as the customer goes through life events, changes, etc. And NAIFA, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, has stepped up to say, what is it that we need to offer so that consumers, agents, advisors, other professionals can feel comfortable saying long-term care or extended care or short-term care or limited care, any one of those issues pop up into people's lives. I agree with you entirely, Michael, that people are living longer, not necessarily healthier,
That's for sure.
but between the medical issues, the financial issues, and the entire issue of legacy, retirement, you know what? It's complicated.
It is.
It really is. So that leads us to, talking a little about NAIFA. Maybe we could put up the second slide
All
that
right,
we had
John, if we
made
could
up.
put up that second slide.
Thanks.
All righty, it's coming up.
Okay. On this,
John's having trouble getting it up. I have no idea.
I'm not going there.
He's going to turn on his microphone and go, don't do that.
I'm just going to start to talk a little bit about
that's what she said.
NAIFA. That's the third slide.
Oh, that's the
So-
third slide. Can we go backwards one?
But it's okay. What I
we
wanted
go.
to say was that NAIFA is the oldest and the largest. As a matter of fact, we're very excited that next year is their 130th anniversary.
Wow.
And as you mentioned, Michael, NAIFA is going through quite a change, moving into the world as it is now. 130 years of history are important, and they're not, moving away from that history. But in order to be responsive to the situations that agents and customers alike are starting to run into, they've had to reorganize themselves a little bit. So now there are major chapters in every single state, because you remember that NAIFA is probably the premier organization for advocacy.
No doubt. No doubt
And if
about
there's
that.
one thing our organizations and our industry, we really need to get it together, is what do we need for more people to be able to access all of the different options
Yes.
that are available, the education. Fortunately, NAIFA does do what's called a congressional conference, and we have the opportunity to literally meet with congressmen and statesmen alike and discuss issues. But our industry has to help NAIFA by stepping up and
Yes.
saying, what are the most important things? What's going to help everybody through the financial and health issues that may arise as we go through retirement?
And one of the things I've always loved about NAIFA, because I'm involved in a few organizations that I speak, throughout the country about the use of home equity or, quote, reverse mortgage, is NAIFA is the most down to earth. I don't know what other term I could put it. They do business with Mr. and Mrs. America. You never get, and I've talked to thousands of NAIFA people in 20 years, well, at least in the last 11 years, I should say, of my reverse mortgage career. You never hear, well, I've never heard, I don't want to talk to somebody unless they're worth $5 million. No, unless there's $10 million under management, I really don't want to deal with that. I've never run into that with a NAIFA member. And that's what the public needs right now, because most of us don't have that 5 or 10 million.
You know, it's funny you say that, because part of the NAIFA websites and part of what they're doing now to reach out is called, well, they've been Main Street America forever.
Yeah.
And that speaks to what you were saying. That is who they serve. It doesn't mean that if an uber wealthy person came along,
you're not
they
gonna
would
hang
turn
up
them
on
away.
them.
But that is not really their customer. Their customer is Main Street USA. Their agents and advisors are Main Street USA. They currently serve probably a little in excess of 90 million families.
That's staggering.
So, well, they're good at what they do. They're getting better at what they do, but they don't lose their focus. Main Street USA is their focus and will remain their focus.
And let's face it, it is Main Street USA that is suffering the last decade in this country the most.
I would agree with you. I think that we have to continue to say these are people who, just like everyone else, are facing the challenges of aging in place. Everyone wants to age in place, although as a boomer myself, I'm not aging. None of us are aging.
That's okay. I'm aging enough for both of us. So I aged this summer.
It's pretty typical. If I could ask for the next slide, it could show your audience the next one, if you would.
All right.
As you can see, there's a consumer website, and it's www.financialsecurity.org. And when you get to that site, you can find a NAIFA agent, and you will see that they will be local, they will be Main Street. So for any consumer who visits that site, they're going to find that they can find someone. And one of the good things is that they'll have this LACP-CLTC. You know, LACP, like the CLTC designations, really tell you, what do they tell you? They tell you that they've taken the time, the energy, and put the money behind additional learning. I have several designations, as you know, and when people see them, they say, wow, and I go, but think about what that tells you. A designation tells you that this person wants to learn.
Yes.
This is a person who is open to continuing to expand their universe and their learning.
Yeah, and I'm very biased about the, even though I'm not even an insurance person, the CLTV.
No,
the LTVC. CLTV.
Certified in Long-Term Care.
Yes, that's it. What she just said. I'm biased about that because it's one of the first organizations that Peter Gelbach's introduced me to 10 years ago. It's how I met Bill Comfort, who again to me is, I've learned so much from Bill Comfort, and listening to him speak is, I think I'm a good speaker. I'm not even in his class. And then of course getting to know Harley Gordon. I know Harley. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I spoke to Harley today.
Harley sold the school, didn't he?
He did, but
is he still involved?
He's still involved with CLTC. And this afternoon, just coincidentally, Harley and I had a discussion because he is creating CE classes, and we're talking about having those classes because he is still connected to CLTC.
Yeah,
and the LACP is a NAIFA designation, and you know there's a lot of designations out there.
What does it stand for, LACP?
It is the
Los Angeles Certified Police.
No. It has to do with Life and Annuity Certified Professional.
Oh, that's cool.
So for our industry, Michael, where so many of the new options for extended and long-term care involve a basis of life insurance policy or an annuity policy.
So you're talking about the hybrid products.
Correct.
Today's world.
An asset care product, for example. If he can bring up the next slide.
If you want, John, we'll just leave the slide up and talk behind it and just keep,
just for a few minutes,
easier,
it would be easier. Okay, so what you're seeing here is ILTCI, as you know, is the premier organization that has 4 days of education. We're having the next one March 29th through April 1st in Denver, Colorado at the Sheraton downtown. And it's 4 days of solid education. As you know, there's several tracks. So whether you're an actuary or an underwriter or a salesperson doesn't matter. If you have anything to do with anything, any part of it, even the cottage industry, so that you have administrators, you have...
I wonder if they have reverse mortgage speakers.
Yes, we do, because I have them in my track.
Oh, that's right, you do.
Which we're just putting together.
It's not
but
me.
I think the slide can show you that it represents a whole myriad of different solutions. For example, Nationwide, One America, they have wonderful new products, and they're increasing those products' ability to reach out to Main Street.
That's right.
USA.
I love that. That's what Bill and Peter were talking about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
I saw it,
That,
yes.
that's always been the main thing to me. So I can't afford long-term care insurance. Now you can.
That's right.
That to me, that's amazing.
Right, and it solves a lot of the issues that people were unhappy with, the use it or lose it.
Yeah.
It solves a lot of, it used to be that they were more or less single pay, and now you can do annually or 10 pay, et cetera. So what I would say is that they are being responsive to what people need.
All right. Let's go to the next slide, John.
So, you know, I think what we want to talk about, Michael, and he can take this down, but I just wanted to show everybody that for you and I, the boomers now are aging out of really being eligible
Isn't that
for
amazing?
the traditional.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, because, you know, with 10,000 of them turning 70 now every day. We used to say 65.
That's
but
right. Now
they
it's 70.
have become a little
Isn't that
more
amazing?
mature. Yes.
A little more mature. What a nice way. All of you turning 70 are now a little more mature.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
But, yeah, well, you're talking to a woman who is like a typical boomer.
Yeah.
So for us at NAIFA, we're looking at consumers who are perhaps between 40 and 60. That is a time when the conversation needs to start.
Yes.
So when you're looking at the missing link in a retirement plan, you do all of these things. You have life insurance and you have, say, retirement funding, you have homeowners insurance, the whole list.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a long-term care or an extended care event, as you know, it can wreak havoc.
Oh, it could be devastating to most people financially.
So NAIFA's whole issue, and that's why it's limited and extended care, and the last one, the P in LECP, is planning. Because even if you're not ready to move forward with the product that would work perhaps best for you, you need a plan of how to get there.
That's right.
And so working with an agent or advisor means that from all of the different sponsors we have, for example, we have Legacy Shield. Well, they don't sell a product, but they secure all of your documentation. Like you, I probably did a medical document, a living will, a regular will. And when you think about the amount of insurances, that bank accounts, insurances
it's unbelievable.
that are not collected. I heard the figure 1.6 billion with a B. So if we have a place where we can lock that securely and then know who has the right to access it.
Yes.
That's on our site because you see the whole idea is a plan.
What is the name of that company? Legacy?
Legacy Shield.
We should probably bring them on the show.
Yeah, you probably should.
That sounds
If you
amazing
go
to me.
back to that slide, you'll see they're on there.
All
But
right, don't,
you know,
we won't go back to
we
that
don't
slide.
have to do
Yeah.
that. We have other things, like you saw CLTC right in the center, that designation. LACP, same thing.
Right.
We hope that even though our focus at NAIFA is Main Street USA, it doesn't mean that we don't want to have the very best.
Right,
And part of that is, of course, education.
yeah, it's always
And
education.
continuing ed.
Yeah,
So what else is part of the sponsorship? Life settlements. And people go, oh.
I was just going to say that, sort of like reverse mortgages. People go, no, to tell us. Because it's not what it used to be either.
Right, exactly. So the sponsor that we have posts a great deal of information on the LECP site. Now, we saw that there is a consumer site, and we don't necessarily post a lot of information because, as I said, NAIFA is changing a lot of what they previously did, and it takes time,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of work. But we have Life Settlements, GWG Holdings, and Life Care Exchange as sponsors, because for some people, that is the answer. And
Give us a little summary, though, for the public, for the layman, of what a life settlement company does.
okay, so there are two ways to approach a life settlement company. The one that is our sponsor examines a life insurance product. And let's say that you don't have anyone to leave your life insurance to, and you want to age in place. But that's expensive. So you can get a certain amount for your life insurance policy, and that is paid to you as a lump sum, or it can be put into a trust that pays out periodically. Now, it's probably somewhat like traditional long-term care with the rate increase reputation, maybe a little bit like reverse mortgage. It starts out with a reputation that makes it a bit challenging for people. So we have a lot of information from this Life Care Exchange company, and we post it continuously so that if one of the agents or advisors runs into someone who says, look, I have 6 policies.
Yeah.
I really believed in it,
Yeah.
but I don't have any cash flow, and I really need to do this. They want to go to a reputable
Absolutely.
company, and that company is highly regulated now. And that's the same for the reverse mortgage,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So the reverse mortgages, which now I know so much more about because we do have a sponsor for
Yes.
our reverse mortgages.
Which is a great company.
RFS
Oh,
lending.
absolutely.
I have learned from Shelley Giordano and
The best person to learn from.
yes, and from Chris Karagakis and
Yeah.
Chris Bruiser,
Who's right here in Tampa.
Yes, he's a NAIFA member.
He's one of the best
and-
reverse mortgage people in the country.
exactly.
You're naming the best reverse mortgage. Chris is unbelievable. And of course, Shelley has educated more people than I think anyone, period, in the industry.
And I'm one of them.
Yes.
I didn't even know what HECM was.
You didn't know what the heck it meant.
Right. So this is really your expertise. So I would ask you to explain to our audience a little bit about why the government stepped in,
Yeah.
created all of these very substantial regulations.
I don't want to take too much time on reverse mortgages because we
Okay.
just spent an hour on it last week. But yeah, there's no way to get around it. Many of us in the reverse mortgage world feel it's almost a shame that the government had to come in and regulate us so much to protect seniors. I don't want to get too blunt, but it's almost like we were forced, to be honest.
Right.
And make no mistake about it, 98% of the reverse mortgage industry is so noble and such great people, just like the long-term care insurance people.
Right.
It's that 1 or 2%, it's that one bad apple in the bunch, or a couple of bad apples in a barrel, that can make the industry look terrible.
Right.
But today's reverse mortgage literally doesn't even look like the reverse mortgage of 10, 15, 20 years ago. Protections for the estate, for the heirs, for the surviving spouse. And again, that one sensitive area that I've been trying to convince the long-term care insurance world of for going on 11 or 12 years now, is it is proper to use a reverse mortgage to help pay for long-term care insurance. Whether it's directly, Michael, give me $537 a month, or is it a $100,000 lump sum so they could buy a hybrid life insurance program with a LTC rider? Or what I see more often than not, because so many people don't think of this, is I meet a senior, and you started to name this before, they have their auto insurance, they have their house insurance, they have probably a little life insurance, they're above 65, they have their Medicare supplemental policy for both husband and wife, and when I get done, they have like $1,300 a month in premiums, and they have a $1,500 mortgage payment. I eliminate the mortgage payment. I don't give them money to buy insurance. I eliminate the mortgage company, and suddenly those $1,300 in premiums is not a draw on them anymore.
Right.
And that's the most common use, to me, of a reverse mortgage. Let's get rid of all those premiums, and now you have the ability to possibly buy better or more products and services. But as you know, there's a lot of cloud around what you use a reverse mortgage for. Got to clear up that cloud.
I would agree. And I think that the more people who understand, I was reading Shelley's new book, and I noticed that one of the things that a reverse mortgage can do is, sometimes you think back to 2008. Ugh.
Yeah.
So what if it was 2008 and you had to take out some money from your investments? Bad timing.
Right.
Very bad timing. First of all, the market is not in a good place. Secondly, you have unintended tax consequences.
Possible
right?
penalties.
Possible penalties. So I was reading that some people will have a line of credit with their reverse mortgage, and they can draw on that line of credit just to get them through that period.
That's right.
So that they avoid all the stress, all the tax consequences, all of the unintended consequences
Yes.
of bad timing.
That's right.
And I was impressed by that
Yeah.
because I thought, okay, I would never have thought about that.
Yeah.
Now, it's just a line of credit. It's not necessarily that they have done anything,
That's right.
but they saw it as an option, a just in case, and it probably has helped a lot of people, and a lot of us didn't even know it existed.
No, Shelley and her task force have been the best in the nation of getting this message out. But use the equity in your home. It's not going to stop your house from going up or going down, by the way.
Yeah.
Your house is going to do what it does.
Right.
Use the equity in your home during bad times and let your investments sit. Let them make that comeback. Yeah, there's no one better than Shelley and the task force of sending that message out to Main Street America.
Right. Well, you mentioned Medicare, and I am happy to say that that is also one of the things that we decided was important to have a sponsor who was an expert par excellence in Medicare. So we have brought on senior marketing specialists, and I just finished an interview with Dan Magnus, who, he scares me. He's so smart and so brilliant about all of this. Does a lot of teaching at American College and a couple of other organizations. And to me, the reason that it's on there is because there are so many changes, and I stuck in a slide on that as well. There are so many changes that are coming in Medicare. We're seeing the tip of the iceberg, I think,
Absolutely.
with the changes in 2020. And why is that significant? Why would we have that on limited and extended care planning site? Well, because for one of the NAIFA agents, or frankly, any member agent, well, that can really affect your plan
Oh, greatly.
when you think you're going to have something to help you through retirement, you get there and things start to change. Well, it's already happening. I think we all thought it was inevitable.
Yes.
Just because there's between 77 and 79 million boomers.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. But, I think there's, 77 Gen Xers, too. I mean,
know.
it's not like this is just going to go away.
America is coming of age.
Absolutely. So for me, one of the slides that I don't know if he can even find it is showing that a couple turning 65 today, and I didn't, maybe he could bring up the slides and move forward, and I'll say stop.
Go ahead, John, bring it up just for a second. We've been very lucky here on 62 who
Yeah.
knew from a mutual friend I was introduced to Miss Diane. Do you know which slide it is?
Let's see, probably, no. So if he just brings
Just
them
bring it up and we'll move
and-
it forward. Miss Diane Daniels, who is the founder of Medicare Nation, just won an award
Ah,
for the
yes.
#1 podcast.
Right.
She's become a regular guest. She's going to be part of our ongoing panel, and she'll be on in the next couple of weeks.
I will learn
All right.
something.
Oh, yeah, she's incredible.
Right, so pass this slide.
Let's go past this one.
Well, this is what we're discussing.
Right.
The fact that...
Self-insured drives me crazy.
Me too, but you know what? The wealthy never self-insure.
Yeah.
They have
Isn't that
figured
amazing?
offset the whole thing. And then for the government program, we're talking now about the Medicare and Medicaid. If you could move one forward.
One more.
Oh,
wow.
this is something we should
This-
stop
this-
for
yeah.
a moment.
Yeah, this is something people need to pay attention to.
Right. This just came out from, Genworth Financial. They have Care Scout does this for them every year. But don't you think that just looking at the 2004 cost of $65,000, round figures, now in 2019, $102,000.
$100,000 to have a private room.
Can you imagine? But even looking at the home care, which is the third one down, or assisted care, which is now so popular, it went from 28, almost 29, to 48.6.
These are numbers, I hate to say this, but these are numbers that most Americans don't even have access to. I mean, it's funny that we're putting up $48,000 for assisted living facility, and of course in our industry, in the reverse mortgage world, we have statistics. Your average American isn't even retiring with $48,000 in the bank, let alone have access to it without insurance. If they planned for it, they would have it.
Exactly.
That's what's so
Michael.
amazing. Yeah.
Exactly. And so even the second to the last column on the right, the total increase. So most
incredible.
people avoid nursing homes, but 56%. But look at assisted living, which a lot of Americans are thinking of. 68, almost 69% increase. And home care, just under 25% increase. My concern as a professional is that we don't have enough professional
Exactly.
caregivers.
Oh, there's no doubt.
So if you pair up the cost, along with the fact that there is a shortage of people who are trained, you can't just pick somebody up and move them, or you wind up in a hospital bed next to them with a
Right.
sprained back or broken.
And time is flying so quick. As you see the big clock, we still have time. I don't want to get too much on this subject, but one of the things I've learned from one of our other guests, which is Home Instead, which is the
Excellent
largest in-home
company.
care,
Yes, excellent.
non-medical in-home care company in the country. One of the things I've learned from them, which I never knew, is these in-home care people don't make that much money. So
No.
similar to police officers, school teachers, in-home care people are playing a vital role in our nation, yet they don't get paid well. And it's going to be very hard to attract that younger generation into our industries.
That's right.
When they can go somewhere else and make a better living. This is really a conundrum of incredible proportions. We need this because America is aging. Tens of millions.
Right.
But you better be very selfless and you better have a spouse that makes a really good living.
So I'm
It's just wrong.
Yeah, and I'm sure that when you had Home Instead on, that they explained to you that they can't attract enough people. Well, where does that actually leave a caregiver,
That's right.
non-professional caregiver, who, as we all know, statistically, it's not a good place to be for a long period of time.
That's
You
right.
need respite, you need to move away from it, et cetera. Will we be able to? So, as I said when we began, long-term care, extended care, short-term care, it's complex. A lot of people don't believe in short-term care. But I'll tell you this, short-term care, I have heard, you know Barb Stucklacker?
Of course.
I never pronounce her name correctly. She was saying to me, well, for some people, because, you know, I was
Right.
very active in the worksite market, Middle America, it gives them time to plan
That's right.
because you don't always have the ability to say, well, you know, I know this will happen 7 months from now.
Yeah, Thursday at 2:30, I'm going to have a
7
stroke.
days
Yeah.
from now, all of a sudden, the family is facing something.
Yeah.
So I believe that all of the options that we're talking about, as you could see, some of them were insurance options, some of them certainly weren't
That's right.
insurance, but all of them relate to getting a plan, having something where you work with someone and they say, look, we have these options that will work for you. You don't need to jump into anything, but there are, you know, government options, which you and I both know. I mean, just looking at the slide on the Medicare, it says that a person who is 65 years old will have, in 2019, they turn 65, they'll have a 90% chance of meeting expenses for Medicare Part B health insurance, Part D prescription drug coverage, Medigap Plan F, and out-of-pocket drug costs, assuming
Right.
they're not taking a, you know, very expensive,
Drugs and well,
which
pharmaceuticals.
there are plenty of
Oh,
those.
yes, there are.
Right, and so they would need, a couple would need $301,000 to cover all of these expenses, because as you know, it's changing. We're paying more in deductibles, we're having to offset, because there's so many.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah,
And again, another entire show that we'll probably do one day with maybe Peter, Mark, and you. Again, it's, to me, we could do a marathon on it. You know, people talk about the gun industry and the
Right.
cigarette industry and how dishonest certain industries are compared to pharmaceuticals. These people are Disney characters. I mean, really and truly. When I have asthma and I take a Trelegy in the
Right.
morning, one squirt in it. It's a steroid.
Okay.
But it keeps me breathing great.
Right.
And I remember when I first got it, which was a couple of years ago, and I won't name my major medical company. I mean, they're a big, huge company. They weren't sure they were going to pay for it. And it was $300 per month. So I said, you know, hey, I like to breathe. Breathing is good. Not breathing, not as good.
No.
So I said, okay, you know, I'll write the check and we'll worry about it next month.
yeah.
And there's my pharmacist, great guy, who goes, wait a minute, there's a site. And I have Trelegy for the next 3 years for $20 a month.
Oh, my goodness.
Please, everybody that has asthma that's on Trelegy, just
Wow.
Google that. $20 a month with no insurance. I got a coupon.
Wow.
But does that show you the needless markup? How many people, I mean, knock wood, I could write a check for $300 or give them the debit card. How many people aren't breathing well? It's just such a ripoff. It's wrong. It's morally and ethically wrong. We're going to have to do a show on it one day, bring somebody in from Big Farm, and just rip them apart. just slap them all over the place. It's just
Well,
wrong.
It's, you know, you see a lot of like 60 Minutes and some of the other investigative reports, the one that they did on diabetes, and you think, $600. Just how could that be?
It can't be.
And when you look at the history of what it cost and how much it's gone up, it's a complex subject. I understand that.
Yeah.
But as you say, from Main Street USA, they like to breathe.
Yeah, breathing is good.
You know,
And when you've got diabetes, insulin is good.
Yeah,
It's, there's no more years from now when we're all gone, hundreds of years, when they're looking back.
right.
They'll look at pharmaceutical industry as the worst greedy. Sorry, watch, I'll get home, they'll cancel my Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'll get an
I
email.
don't
Your Trelegy
think
is now
so.
$9,000. But yeah, I don't even want to get into that because I knew we were going to run out of time. We got 16 minutes left.
Well, you know, I think you're now getting the impression that NAIFA, in putting this center together, even though it says, you know, limited and extended care, it's an informational place for agents and for advisors. I mean, joining NAIFA at this point, this is a value add.
Oh,
this
yes.
is not something that they add on to the membership price or anything. This is something that they have put together in order, and you have to give the sponsors
Yes.
a tremendous,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? There are 3 brokerages, American Resource Marketing, which I think has become part of LTC Global now.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we have LTCI partners who have worked with advisors and agents for years and years and are very into technology and whatnot. ARM specializes in worksite. So for people who want to ask questions about, can I get this at work? They work with other agents, they work with companies to solve that.
Right.
And say, okay, there's executive carve-outs, there's core buy-ups, there's voluntary benefits. They are just great with it. And then LTCI Partners also works with a lot of agents, with a lot of financial advisors. They have both individual and worksite. They do a lot of the hybrid product work. And then the final one, of course, is Ash Brokerage. Ash Brokerage, I am so impressed. They just did a session at the Performance Plus Purpose conference that NAIFA runs. And Chad Irick, who is the one who was doing the session for us, showed all these different types of tools that help an agent working with a consumer. So let's say that we're sitting down with a consumer. They have no idea what they need.
Right,
You know,
which
this
most
is,
don't.
Right, it's not
Yeah.
a topic that they're really familiar with. So Chad showed this chart, which is kind of fun working with a client where you can answer the questions with them, and then at the end you run it, and it gives you suggestions. It tells you where you land in terms of certain needs and certain products and certain ideas. And I think, you know, working with clients, let's say the ones that are watching today, it's kind of fun to, you know, say, well, I have a tool that we can work with.
Yes.
They're very into all of those kinds of aids and things. So as you can see, the whole LECP, when you and I were together last year, I don't think we had 14 sponsors. I know that we didn't.
Yeah.
And adding like senior market specialists for Medicare.
Right.
Because when you're talking to a client and they go, well, Medicare will cover it, you need solid information to say, well, let's talk about that. You know, you don't want to say, well, no, that's not going to happen. I think you need solid information to say, let's look at that together.
Right.
Or if they go, you know, I don't really like to talk about this.
Which is so common.
So take one of the things that partners or Ash Brokerage have and say, why don't we work through this together? And then we won't talk. You
Yeah,
take it away, you think about it, you see how the plan fits in. Because as you and I know, I like that Mark Twain statement where he says, you will regret, in 20 years, you will regret more, excuse me, what you didn't do
Oh, of course.
than what you did do.
Absolutely.
And so I always think about,
That's so true.
yeah, consumers, and you think to yourself, well, they regret that they didn't do it. But we have to be there and
Yeah.
say to them, I don't know how you want to approach this, whether you want to approach it with documentation, let's talk about it, see what's missing there, whether you want to say, will Medicare be there for me, and how much do I need? I don't think I understand that there's all these different
That's right.
parts
Options.
of it. Do I need a tool? Do I need an expert? Do I want to get this at work? Do I want a hybrid product? What kind of a company do I want? What kind of a carrier do I want?
Yeah.
So I always say to people who access the financialsecurity.com
Right.
site, which is NAIFA's consumer site, and they're looking for information, my information is up there too.
Right.
cgolden@naifa.org.
Okay.
Because I am always interested to hear from consumers what's missing, what should be available to someone who you're working with on a site where you
Yeah.
have questions. What am I missing to help create this hub of information where if you ask a question, someone can go and get the answer from an expert, who just does that for a living? Because
Yeah, not your brother-in-law Ralph, who reads a lot. I get that a lot. I do in the reverse mortgage world. My cousin has researched this, and we don't think we want to do it. What does your cousin do? He's a plumber. Oh, really? Well, I've been researching drains. I mean, but I'm a reverse mortgage person. Yeah, it drives me. What's missing, and I think Mark and Peter and I ended the show talking about this. The topic of long-term care insurance is something people shy away from. Nobody, me at 61 and overweight, or at 30 when I was, at 40 in perfect shape, you don't want to think about that part of your life, where you may not be ambulatory, you may not be able to go to the bathroom, dress yourself, and hopefully none of us get there. But there may be parts of your life that you need that help, but there's that emotional wall that makes you go, okay, now let's talk about long-term care insurance. Well, maybe we should wait about that. Why? It's too late. You can't call them after you, when you need it, you can't get it. You have to get it before. Come on.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
but that is exactly why when I was developing with the team at NAIFA, what should be on this site for an agent who wants to talk to a person about this, that is exactly why I think it was Henrik Larsson at ARM who said to me, make sure we have the word planning in there.
Yeah.
Because people may not want to talk about it, but they probably are more open to saying, so what would the plan look like?
That's right.
It's step one is to say, well, not having a plan is a plan.
Right.
And it's a bad plan.
That's right.
So
People don't realize that.
right, and that's why I said to you, anything that should be on the site. For example, probably I need some more about planning when you need care, like a home instead.
Right.
I have contacted, Harley is looking for an elder care attorney for me, because maybe there are some questions there that a consumer
Absolutely.
would have, and that an agent would have to say, I have a resource. I'll get a real answer to this, a legal answer
Right.
to this legal question.
That's right.
Because it's a little out of my purview.
We try to do that here on the show. And we've had one great elder law attorney on twice. And what I've learned is, and he admitted, he told me, he said, Michael, there are different laws in different states. It's
That's
not like
right.
reverse mortgages
No.
or a nationwide policy where it's all
Right.
the same pretty much everywhere. You might need 50 experts. I went, wow.
Well, that's why we're approaching it through an organization and a society, somewhat, because they have those for elder care attorneys. And
Yes.
like any highly professional.
Yeah, they have an association. I spoke
they
at it
sure
a few
do.
years ago.
Right. And so that's who I would try to. We have a a marketing agreement, for example, with NALBA, because they have experts there that we may want to pair up with. We have just completed a marketing agreement with Females in Fund Man.
Say that again. Easy for you to say.
6 times in a row.
Females in who?
and Finance.
Females in finance.
Right. So we're just starting to look at, because there's a lot of issues in this industry that uniquely influence the way women approach what
Oh, there's
they
no
do.
doubt. We had a professor on, and I feel terrible that I'm forgetting her name, from USF, that talked nothing about that for those 65 and 70-year-old
Right.
men that have 55 to 60-year-old women, who that generation still isn't like the younger generation.
Yeah.
Their Social Security checks were less. They stayed home to take care of the children. Another topic that I never realized, and it hit home, was when somebody in the family got sick.
Right.
It was the wife that pulled out of her career
Right.
to take care of not just mom, mother-in-law. And therefore, when she got older, she got less of a Social Security, less in her 401k, and now they're in their 70s. And there's some very specific issues that women have to deal with
Right,
that people
and-
don't think about till it's time.
Right, and a lot of those, as you're referring to, even taking a child out. I was looking at what the effect of having a child come out of their young career. Let's say the person is 30, male or female. They have to pass up promotions. They will earn less,
Oh, no doubt.
therefore they can't put as much away if they don't even have to contribute towards the care of this person.
That's right.
So it's, they become socially less active. I mean, there's,
It's everything.
right. So we're back to the fact that I'm devoting myself to making sure that with the help of NAIFA, we are starting to promote planning with all of the different options on the limited and extended care planning site that we hope more and more members will access, so that when it relates to your audience, to your consumer, don't know what's right for a person.
Yeah.
And it's not always the same conversation.
Absolutely.
Right? As Harley said, there are different consequences, but there are consequences
Exactly.
to not having a plan. And maybe you can't do it all immediately, but to me, the important thing is that with NAIFA's help, we'll start to build this hub, this site, and whatever relates to helping people find a way to talk about it. And it'll be with probably what do I need?
Right.
That's a conversation.
Yeah, it's a conversation that people don't want to have, but they have to have it.
Well, if you're talking about your plans, it's a little easier to have that conversation. So my plan is that I'm going on Medicare. Okay, how about if we look at what does that look like? You're X number of years old now, the changes that are occurring here. So according to this study, like the one I quoted today, you're going to have to, by the time you turn 65, have accumulated $100,000 for all the different supplements and different aspects of it. What?
Yeah.
Well, if that's your plan, that's what it looks like. Do we want to see what else you could do?
Yeah.
Now, people will talk about that. They
Yeah.
will have a conversation like that. So that's why, for me, it isn't talking about long-term care. It's talking about what is your plan.
It's talking about life and reality,
Healthcare is expensive now.
and it ain't getting cheaper.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's just not getting cheaper. It's
I don't
just
think
ridiculous.
so. And it gets more complicated. I mean, just the changes. When I was talking with Dan Mangus, and he said, well, you know, some of these things change, and in his office, he has people divided by the state. Because it's, again, as you said,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the same
That's
for
right.
everything. Even though it's a federal program, it is administered by states. So some of them have,
Yes.
I mean, think of Massachusetts compared to the health care that other states have.
Right?
So you should have Dan on.
Yeah, we should.
I'm telling you,
Let's
you
do
should.
it.
Yeah, you
Let's
should
do it.
interview him.
Well, again, it's I always frustrates me, and again, I'm not even in the insurance industry, when one of my friends, educated friends, successful friends, we start to talk about, did you see the show last night? Did you see what Mark said? Blah, blah, blah. And they're, I'm going to have Medicare. That's all I need. And I think to myself, I don't say it. Okay, I'm sorry. Sometimes I say it. Are you a moron? What do you mean? Have you spoke to anyone?
Exactly.
About how could you possibly say that?
Right. Or some of the vets' benefits.
Yes.
I was flabbergasted when I started to really get educated about vets' benefits. It sounds great, like all of the benefits.
Right.
And then you start looking into it and say, I needed to know more about this. It's okay that your plan has Medicare in it, or vet benefits in it, or that you expect to self-fund some of it. But then you have to say, okay, is that all that I need?
That's right.
For someone who is buying an annuity or buying life insurance, especially in that 40 to 60 year age, they need to look at what do the new policies do?
That's right.
What don't they do? How do they do it? When do they do
Prepayment
it?
penalties for early withdrawal.
You just have to go to an expert and say, okay, I don't want a guy who, does transmissions
Yeah.
changing my
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing.
computer programs.
It's the same thing. Yeah, you
it's-
don't go to an internist when you have a heart attack.
Right.
It's really kind of amazing.
I see,
can't
Michael,
believe
we
that.
are-
Is that
I
amazing?
know, it went
You're going to
so
have to come
quickly.
back. We have
But I
30
want to
seconds
thank
left.
you
No, I want
so
to thank
much.
you.
No, we'll argue
I
right
thank
here.
you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Well, again, NAIFA, I've been speaking about NAIFA for years, speaking in NAIFA for years. Tampa and Hillsborough and Pinellas here in our area
Right.
just merged with each other. They have some of the finest people and professionals to our 80 to 90,000 people out there with 10 seconds left. If you have any questions, Google NAIFA. You can go right to their website, find a local person, find an expert, okay? Thank you all so much. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Bye.